talk about that. I mean that's all. I was at a conference in Vegas, and that's all everyone was talking about. What do you think is going to happen to our industry with Donald Trump as president? I think every facet of the economy, every industry is talking about it.
Yeah.
Every article in the Wall Street Journal.
I mean, some sectors are going to be better, some won't. But hopefully there'll be some deregulation in the lending with the ridiculous trade and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
which is kind of good, and I mean, it's interesting how that'll affect your business.
Well, I've got what dismantling Dodd-Frank could do.
Okay,
A market bump from Donald Trump's win is peanuts compared to what regulatory relief can bring. And this talks about unraveling Dodd-Frank, but it's interesting because as I'm reading I knew when I read this article that it probably wasn't going to get into the weeds about predatory lending practices, and you can't do interest only, and you can't loan on the equity of a home if they don't have work. All those regulations, that was as a result of Dodd-Frank. That's not, quote, Dodd-Frank. Rolling back Dodd-Frank is much bigger things here. It has to do with, well, I'll read it. We can talk about it back and forth. But Dodd-Frank is not, going back to, making loans to people who clearly don't have the means to afford or liar loans and all that kind of stuff.
Right. I mean, because there's.
Which one are you going to do?
I'm in the, is it okay? Should I go on that one?
Yeah, I would
Sure.
use the black ones and use this one here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not hearing myself, so how do we do it? You got to turn me up a little bit, or can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can hear me okay now.
Okay.
I'm getting good.
Okay.
Good.
Oh my goodness.
You turn this one down a little bit.
Oh, I'm hearing. Remember at the end, I couldn't hear our show last Saturday, and I know towards the end, something was happening where one of my channels was off.
It could have been just the headset, because when I look at this, if this is
fine.
going normal, then it's fine.
But you were hearing it too, because I could tell you.
I was, yeah. But that was just the earpiece.
Okay.
And so here's their email questions. Mark, how does it make sense for you to make short-term loans? Why does it make sense? And then Patty, it's when does it make sense to buy a house as is?
Oh, good.
Okay. All right, are you all ready?
Yeah. Also, I want to talk about commercial lending, what's happening there too. I mean, the commercial sector.
Got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. So our first segment is
7:10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be relatively short. And we got a couple of 3 9s in a row.
Check 9, 8:40, and 9:19.
So maybe I'll save. I don't know that getting into Dodd-Frank on the first one is a good idea, because it's a relatively short. Let's just talk the election and what you're reading, Patty, and what I'm reading, and some of the sectors that what might be more impacted, and just in general, you're talking to people in your universe, which is realtor, real estate, sales, that type of stuff. So you're probably having conversations with your peers. I know I certainly am on the lending side, so I can share some of that.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Welcome, you're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. I'm proud to have as my co-host Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money, one of California's fastest growing mortgage investment firms, and Patty Cohen of Pacific Union International. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 tanning certificates given away during this show. Now, the certificates are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon, with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Check them out. Today's trivia theme is comic book trivia. We'll have some fun with that. All right. Also, check us out on bestofinvesting.com. We're also on television, Comcast Channel 26 and AT&T 99, Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 3:30 p.m. I think they changed our time slot a half an hour. Okay, Mark, we had a lot of stuff to talk about. Why don't you start us off?
Well, we do, and everyone's still talking about the election, and it's just amazing. I mean, I look at my news feed, and I've got a Google news feed and a couple of other news feeds, and it just seems like 7 out of 10 articles have to do with Trump this and Trump that, with respect to segments of the economy and areas that he made so many promises when he was running for president that. Everyone's wondering, okay, well, what's he going to do first, and what promises are going to keep? Is he going to build a wall? Is he going to really do $1 trillion in new infrastructure, which would have amazing impact on the construction and building industry? Is he going to roll back Dodd-Frank? And we're going to talk about that in the coming segment. And what would that mean for lending and banking? And and I cover a lot of real estate articles this last week, and there's a lot of guesstimation as to what his presidency, what the impacts could be for real estate. But here's the bottom line: is nobody really knows anything right now. It's just all a bunch of amazing conjecture, and it's actually kind of exciting. The news cycles were pretty one-sided for the last 6 months. Just ugly rhetoric back and forth.
Well,
And
the thing is, he hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah, I
He
know.
hasn't not even
He's
president.
still 60 days away from being
Yeah.
president.
Wait until
But
he's a
Let's
president.
see.
Wait and
Yeah.
see. Wait, if he does something screwy, then we go out and protest.
And he also promised everything, but he also promised nothing, except, I mean, clearly the wall, but he's backing down on a lot, so,
Well, and
which is good.
Which is good.
here's what I like: he's going to do $1 trillion worth of new infrastructure, but he's going to cut taxes.
There you go.
And he's going to repeal and replace Obamacare, but he's not going to do away with. He's not going to take the people out who are currently qualifying with the existing conditions, and it's just there's all this stuff. Nothing seems to add up. Or make
And get
sense.
us out of debt. That doesn't add up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he cuts a bunch of social programs that are, for all intents and purposes, handouts.
Well, he's
so
like
to
the
speak.
David Blaine or Chris Chris. It's
Chris
David.
Rock?
No, not Chris. Who's the other? There's the David Blaine's one of the magicians. And
David Copperfield.
Yeah.
I know when you kept saying Trump, I kept thinking we were playing bridge. But
Yeah.
what I'm kind of hopeful for is that, he's got a lot of money, he's got a lot of fame, be it good or bad.
Yeah.
And so, what's left in it for him? Well, he doesn't want to go down in history as being a terrible person.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not a big Trump supporter per se, but I was just thinking, gosh, maybe he'll actually try to do something good, 'cause
Yeah, some good
Legacy.
will come out of it.
Yeah.
And he just frankly doesn't care what people think, and there's a lot of value to that.
There.
So he doesn't have to,
Well, this whole
Play
election
politics.
to me wasn't so much being a Trump supporter because he didn't even win the popular vote, right? It was,
Well, I mean, he
it was
only lost by
anti-establishment.
200,000. It was
Yeah.
almost statistically insignificant,
Exactly.
but it was a virtual tie
Yeah,
in terms of voting.
Well, so it was an anti-establishment.
right.
It's like, let's get somebody. It's sort of like when Schwarzenegger took over for government.
Whereas Michael Moore said he's basically given the finger to the establishment. By
Yeah.
voting.
Very good.
What I found interesting is, so I met with several investors this week who wanted to know, what I thought would happen in terms of like investing in our mortgage pool fund, which at Pacific Private Money we've got a mortgage pool fund where people participate in something called mortgage investing, which we're going to talk a little bit about later in the show today. How you can get between 7 and 8% on your money through mortgages on Bay Area real estate. But some of my existing investors are starting to call and say, well, what do you think? What's the impact? Where are the fund yields likely to go? And what's the likely impact on real estate? And one woman who came in to talk with me said, what do you think is going to happen if he gets impeached? Now it's funny, he's not even president yet officially, and she's already thinking, well, he's in her opinion, she thinks he's highly likely to be impeached. It's like for what?
What?
For just being a dick? I mean,
Yeah, right, pretty much.
Stop being a Richard.
So
Yeah.
in the realtor side of things, Patty, what do you with your friends and peers, and what kind of conversations are you hearing about the what ifs and the future of the marketplace?
Really, honestly, there's not a lot of conversations. Realtors are really focused on just their next deal, and
You mean they're not political?
not so much, Anyway, so the market has changed, and it's really slowed down, and it started changing in like mid last year, and
That's not
it's
Trump's
going
fault.
toward a
Yeah,
higher
it's Bush's,
No, it
it's
isn't.
Bush's fault.
Right.
It's Bush's, that's right.
Exactly.
Bush's fault.
colors. But Reagan, no. Anyway, so I thought, well, maybe after the election it'll pick up a little bit, but of course it's the holidays. But we're headed into that long wave of a buyer's market because we just had a very nice long wave of a seller's market.
Yeah.
So it is healthy. But, and if Trump does things to deregulate lending, I think it's a good idea. Now, I'm not talking about softening guidelines for pre-qualifying or for qualifying, but some of the guidelines where you have to wait 3 days now to do something. So it slows down the process. It doesn't, they're not effective.
Gotcha.
So if he can take some of things like the new TRID that came into effect last year, and some of the other things. It would make a big difference. If he does really put some money into an infrastructure, that's more jobs, that's more people that can buy houses, theoretically. So in some ways, it's going to be good.
Gotcha. Okay, tell you what, we're going to cut to our first quick commercial break here. Before we do, we're going to make a quick mention, whether you're local or entertaining visitors, check out the new Cityscape Viewing Lounge at the Hilton San Francisco Union Square for 360-degree views that are out of this world. I've been there, and they are 360-degree views, and they are out of this world. There's Golden Gate Bridge on one side and AT&T Park on the other. Got to check that out. Okay, comic books is what we're talking about here. These are actually kind of hard. What superhero was born with the Curse of Kordax? Now, you've heard of the superhero before. This is a new one.
Kordax.
All right, the first caller with correct answer is going to win that free Tan Bella tanning certificate. Call 888-912-1190. Don't touch that dial. The best of investing will be right back. Kind of long on that, but that's okay.
So what happens if it's long? Just make it up on the next one?
That
into
or
a
they'll just kind
sponsor?
of cut till the, they won't cut us, which is good. I mean, if I went way too long, they'd have a conniption, but
Cut a sponsor, maybe?
potentially. That's what Talk 910 would do. They'd say, okay, gotta get rid of something,
That's a good question about buying as is.
Yeah. Good. Probably riding the bike.
5-hour energy.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll go in, if we can, we'll talk about, we'll have a discussion about the possibility of dismantling of Dodd-Frank and what that would result in.
All right. Ready? Okay. Away we go. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff and Patti. First commercial trivia question we have was, what superhero was born with the Curse of Kordax?
What is Kordax?
I don't know.
Thor? Was it Thor?
Aquaman.
Oh.
I said, okay, I didn't know that.
Oh, Kordax lets you breathe underwater. No, I don't know.
Okay, that's good to know, Patti.
For Aquaman.
Yeah, right. Mark, you had...
I was going to talk about a little bit about Dodd-Frank. So one of the many promises that Donald Trump has made was that he was going to repeal Dodd-Frank. And so what is Dodd-Frank and what does that mean? So I've got an article from the Wall Street Journal that says, what dismantling Dodd-Frank could do. The market bump from Donald Trump's win is peanuts compared to what regulatory relief could bring. So I've got a few highlighted here that I thought was pretty interesting. All through his campaign, Mr. Trump said regulatory relief for the economy was a priority, including the repeal of Dodd-Frank. Repeal or a thoroughgoing reform of that so-called destructive law is certainly a key step toward an economic recovery, according to this writer. Dodd-Frank was signed into law in 2010, and it was based on the idea that insufficient regulation, particularly of Wall Street, had allowed a buildup of subprime mortgages, a housing bubble, and ultimately the 2008 financial crisis. And the Democrats back then, who controlled Congress after 2008, they acted quickly to follow out with this huge bill that was sponsored by Mr. Dodd and Frank, hence the name Dodd-Frank. And it became the most restrictive financial legislation since the New Deal. What was also kind of sad about this particular, huge bill is that there was no significant debate in Congress about whether the cause of the crisis had actually been correctly identified.
Oh, interesting.
Interestingly enough, a study in 2014, years after Dodd-Frank was put into was begun to be implemented, showed that in 2008. More than half of all mortgages in the U.S. were subprime or otherwise risky, and 76% of those were on the books of government agencies.
Oh, yeah, they were. It was,
so this leaves no doubt, according to the study, that government housing policies and not a lack of regulation created the demand for these risky mortgages. But by the time this study came out, it was too late. So again, it's the typical government acting to fix a problem without actually understanding what maybe caused the problem in the first place. So in any event, many believe that Dodd-Frank is one of the reasons, or should I say the new restrictive policies on banks and lenders have been responsible for a historically slow recovery from the financial crisis. And here's a sampling of some of the things that happened as a result of Dodd-Frank. You remember companies like GE Capital? I don't know.
I do.
Yeah, in fact, we used to borrow from them a lot. One of the new laws governing banking and banking regulations affected companies like GE and GE Capital. GE realized that its huge financial subsidiary was wilting under the Fed's new controls and restrictive guidelines. Seeking an exit, GE wound down GE Capital, eliminating from the market an important source of funding for small and innovative firms. And then you had the Volcker Rule, another Dodd-Frank provision, which prohibited banks and affiliates from any trading of securities for their own account, even though there was no evidence that this activity had any role in the financial crisis. So you had a situation where small banks and other credit sources for small businesses and startups, due to facing all of these new and costly regulations, basically, instead of hiring loan officers, they had to let their loan officers go and hire compliance officers. And then there was the huge new government entity, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is with no government oversight whatsoever, and not appointed by the president, controlling a large part of these new regulations. So anyway, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Now, what's interesting about, and you and I, Edward, have talked about Dodd-Frank quite a bit. Some of these regulations that restrict banks really don't get down into the weeds, which is what I, being a private money lender, Pacific Private Money, listeners have heard me say that Dodd-Frank has actually been good for our business model, and it has been because not so much because of what they've done to banks, but particularly to mortgage lending. Things like certain types of lending are now considered predatory lending practices, like interest-only loans or no income declaration or stated income loans. Lending just on the equity of your home, or equity stripping, which again is kind of strange because if you want to borrow against the equity of home, why can't you? Well, there was belief that lenders and mortgage brokers were actually taking advantage of people with equity in their homes and selling them loans that would strip the equity from their homes, so they made that illegal. So I don't know that a lot of those regulations, some of them very small and almost invisible at the top political level, I don't see those as being repealed. Repealing of Dodd-Frank might loosen up some of the higher level banking restrictions, but in terms of the actual lending practices, I don't see us going back to the days of closing your eyes, and if you can fog a mirror, you can get a loan. So I really do think that, and it's interesting that Janet Yellen was quoted as saying that she was not in favor of repealing Dodd-Frank because that's what got us into trouble in the first place. and she's an extremely smart woman, and for those words to come out of her mouth, I just want to slap myself. It's just like,
could be political.
Well, it is. It's absolutely political because no, it's not what got us into 2008 in the first place. It's absolutely not. It was loose. It was basically lending guidelines and
well, she's sort of throwing that generic term Dodd-Frank, kind of blanket over all of those sort of things.
Right. Well, it's almost now, when you say Dodd-Frank, it's almost, unless you say what is it about Dodd-Frank that you disagree with that you want to repeal, because it was a 2,500-page bill, much of which hasn't even been implemented yet, and now with Trump coming on as president, probably never will.
If Hillary had gotten in, was it just expected that she would just follow suit and implement what was left? to get.
That was the expectation. So those of us in the mortgage lending industry talking about what was likely to happen with the Clinton presidency was more of the same from the past 8 years. And you're exactly right. I was actually concerned that not only would they not roll back some of the overreaching financial regulations, but they would actually continue to enact more and more and more and make it even more difficult for companies like ours to make good loans to people who have an actual need for the money, and yet maybe we might be restricted from making that loan thanks to these laws.
All right, tell you what, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got a couple email questions for each of you, and we'll see how you answer those.
Mm-hmm.
All right, first of all, come aboard Hornblower Cruises for a one-of-a-kind Thanksgiving experience. It's kind of nice.
Fun.
Go in there for Thanksgiving. With spectacular views, live entertainment, and a gourmet holiday dinner all on board. Gather your family and just relax this Thanksgiving. They'll cook the turkey and even do the dishes. Book your reservation today at hornblower.com. Okay, so here's our second trivia question. What Chester Gould character made his first appearance in the Detroit Free Press on October 4th, 1931? Okay, so what Chester Gould character, not even sure who Chester Gould was, but character made his first appearance in the Detroit Free Press on October 4th, 1931. So think about
Siri?
1931. Yeah. All right, call 888-912-1190. Don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing. I'll be right back.
Siri, why is everyone asking me that right now?
Let's see.
What you got?
Well, commercial lending, all those loans made
Oh,
in
yeah.
2006 are coming due, and they, even though that they've got equity, they can't afford to do anything with them. So there's a lot of defaults happening, and that's an $11 billion sector of the economy.
11 billion?
Yeah,
That's not that much, really. I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of.
you'd think it'd be more.
Yeah. But maybe, only maybe 2006. That's 11 billion just.
I saw an article from one of my news feeds. I didn't read it because I usually don't go down the commercial route. That talked about commercial lending is becoming more and more difficult. And I saw the 11 number, but I don't remember if it was trillion or billion. So
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it is trillion. What am I thinking? It is trillion.
Oh, okay.
I have it right here.
Yeah, no,
I thought I
makes more
said that.
sense.
That's why I was like, that's a lot.
That's a big
Trillion.
I thought I actually said that, but the billion number just comes off as zero. Yeah.
billion, trillion.
Skillion, million, whatever. Yeah.
All right.
Want to do because we got 2 more 9-minute segments.
So let me do our email.
And then Patty, you can have if we take the whole 8 minutes and 40 for this next segment, you can have the bulk of the segment for the 9 minutes.
No, we can do that much. No.
Okay. Well, let's ask your email question first.
Sure.
So we'll do email for each. And then
Okay.
here we go. Well, welcome back to the Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn and Patty Cohen. Second trivia question. What Chester Gould character made his first appearance in the Detroit Free Press on October 4th, 1931? We're talking comic strips. Think about 1931. What I tell you the name, you'll go, oh yeah.
Is it Blondie?
No? Dick Tracy.
Oh, yeah, Dick Tracy, yes.
Yes. Yeah, I knew you'd mention it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Patty, we get an email. It says, when does it make sense to buy a house, quote, as is?
Well, it's a great question, and it depends on a lot of things. One is, what are you buying? If it's a condo built in the last 10 years, you don't need inspections. If it's a property on a hillside, falling down, clearly you can see there's dry rot everywhere, and it's 40 years old with neglected and deferred maintenance, then you want to get some inspections. So that's one thing to consider. The next thing to consider is one of the major things that have changed over real estate over the last 20, 30 years is that properties in residential are really prepared for market. So they're detailed, they're staged, they're ready, inspections are gotten beforehand. People, sellers will do something with those little things they'll fix here and there, they'll credit back. So if you walk in and a seller has already gotten an inspection from an inspector that you know or that your realtor trusts, you might not have to get another inspection, although many people do. So that's another thing. But generally speaking, if you're buying a single family home, you should get some inspection, unless, depending if there is one. And then thirdly, when does it make sense? But another part of that is, when do you have to? Meaning that, there's 15 offers, people will remove contingencies up front. They'll do whatever they have to do to get it. Now we're slipping into a normalizing a buyer's market where people will get inspections whether they want to, or whether they feel like they need to or not, just so that they could get some money back in escrow, because it's a buyer's market. But for the past 10 years, people haven't been getting that many inspections because there were maybe 15 offers. So it depends, and first of all, what are you buying?
Okay. And how do people get a hold of you?
It's Patti Cohn with Pacific Union International, 415-722-4842. That's Patti Cohn, COHN.
And Patti is the #1 realtor in Marin for a reason, so even if you're not in Marin, give her a call. All right, Mark, a question comes in and says, how does it make sense for you to make short-term loans? I guess this person's heard you on the show and how you mentioned that you do make short-term loans as a lender.
So I'm president of Pacific Private Money, based here in the Bay Area, and Pacific Private Money is an alternative source for real estate financing. We are a non-bank lender. We use private capital to make our real estate loans, and we focus on being a local lender, a regional lender. We lend only in California, but our focus is in Northern California. The private capital that we use is from investors throughout California. You need to be an accredited investor in order to participate in what we refer to as on the show as mortgage investing. There's a couple of different ways you can participate in mortgage investing for high yields on your savings. One is to invest in a mortgage pool fund like the Pacific Private Money Fund that we manage from our offices. The Pacific Private Money Fund in 2015 paid out a little over 8%. In 2016, we're on track to end up with just under 8%, maybe about 7.8, 7.9% distributed yield. Of course, past performance is not a promise of future results, but the private lending industry has actually is really come into its own in the last 8 years, post-financial crises, as a result of the banking community, as a result of Dodd-Frank making it much harder for banks and conventional lenders to make loans, and that has made it so that more people. It's still not the majority. It's a small but significant percentage of the borrowing public finds itself in a situation where it can't use bank financing to close on a particular real estate financing. That might include someone who basically is out there buying, fixing, and flipping real estate. That's something that banks used to do with regularity and now don't do as much anymore. Or it might be someone who has a fast funding need. They want to close quickly on a home they're trying to purchase to move into, and they want to compete with cash buyers. Or maybe they thought they had conventional financing lined up, which a lot of people do. They're pre-qualified, they get into contract, they put their deposit down, they do the inspections, and then they find out that their conventional financing isn't going to close. It's been delayed, and not every seller is going to give you an extension, and certainly not an extension for multiples of weeks, especially if there's a buyer's waiting maybe behind you, a backup buyer. So we get all kinds of requests for loans that banks and conventional lenders can't accommodate. And one of the interesting aspects of the loans that we make at Pacific Private Money is that for the most part they're short-term in nature. And so the listener is asking, how can we, make money with doing such short-term loans? I guess the idea being is, sure, we charge, between 8 and 10% for one of our loans, the interest rate that is on the note. And if you only keep the note for 6 weeks or 2 months or even 3 months or 4 months, less than a year.
It seems like a lot of work.
It seems like a lot of work just for, it doesn't almost doesn't matter what the interest rate is because, you're not, the money isn't working for you for that long. Well, there's a second component to the loans we make, and that is the origination fees, the points they're sometimes called. In conventional financing, oftentimes you can do a very low or no point loan. That's pretty common. The bank's making its money on the note rate because they believe you're going to hold that note for for many years, maybe even for the whole 30 years. But in private money financing, we charge significant fees upfront, or not upfront, but at closing. We deduct our fees from the loan proceeds, and those fees basically boost the yield that we earn on short-term loans. So we may loan out the money at a note rate of 8 or 9%. We might have 2 or 3 points charged to the borrower at closing for that loan, and if it's paid off soon, we just turn around and reloan that money out, and we continue to charge those points and collect that rate of interest, the note rate of interest, for however many days the loan is outstanding. But we do that, we keep revolving that money over and over and over again, and we're able to produce for our investors a very healthy and attractive yield that right now is averaging close to 8%. And so there really aren't a lot of opportunities out there to earn yields between 7 and 8% reliably. So this is one of those few areas. And for more information about this, because we can get really complex about, or really deep into the weeds about the aspects of mortgage investing. So for more information on investing in individual notes or our mortgage pool fund, go to our website, pacificprivatemoney.com. That's pacificprivatemoney.com, or call us, 415-883-2150.
Got my own money in there myself, so I can attest.
So do I.
Yeah, that's right, you do.
All three of us.
Yeah, so I can attest to that fact.
We're our favorite investors.
Yes, we are. Okay, here's our third trivia question. What newspaper does Peter Parker work for? Remember, who's Peter Parker? Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Okay, what newspaper does he work for? The first caller with the correct answer is going to win a free Tan Bella tanning certificate, which is good for 3 tanning services. Call 888-912-1190 to answer that question. Don't touch that dial. The best of investing. We'll be right back. All right.
So Patty, we're going to talk about
commercial lending.
trouble brewing in commercial real estate.
Yeah, Wall Street Journal.
Okay. Do you follow much commercial? Or?
Not so much, but I mean it's important.
Yeah.
It's really important. Anyway, and Silicon. If you think about it, Silicon Valley, it's all related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard Silicon Valley wants to separate itself after Trump got in.
Oh, it should.
To secede from the union.
The country of
Oh
Silicon.
God, that's really crazy. I saw something on Facebook, and it had like the whole West Coast, northern, the northeast of, and then Canada, and it said like Canada, and then in the middle, Dumfuckistan.
Of course, if Hillary got in and I was there with a protesting sign because of any evil she had done, right?
Yeah.
I'd get the crap beat out of me.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Because it's free speech only if it's one-sided.
Exactly. I mean, professors were saying to these kids, you don't have to take your exams because it's on the millennials. It's so hard on you.
Yeah. Are you serious?
I am so serious.
At what college level?
Colleges.
There were a lot of colleges and high schools.
And high school teachers were out in the streets protesting. It's like no one did anything illegal. It was an event that happens. You win or you lose, and you move on today.
Well, I understood too. I was listening to. I just listened to the radio, and I don't really listen to Sean Hannity, but he was on.
Yeah.
And he said that apparently someone very close in the knit group said that as soon as she lost, I mean, she was inconsolable.
Just, that she was having a fit, throwing things around.
Well, just she had an absolute mental. She unconsolably crying.
People are
and
crying.
Even the
They're
next
upset.
day. But the thing is, and he made the point that I was thinking of is, that's not the kind of person I think should be fit to be president. I don't have a problem with a woman president.
Right.
But Golda Meir, she was a pretty powerful, strong woman. You know? But I don't want somebody who, when they lose,
I know. I know. Oh my God,
yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Here we go. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here, along with Mark Hunt and Patti Cohn. Last trivia question we have here is: what newspaper does Peter Parker, i.e. Spider-Man, work for? You guys remember?
Daily Planet?
Daily Bugle.
Bugle.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
wrote Bugle or Planet, so
Oh.
I guessed wrong.
Yeah.
Daily Planet was Superman, right?
Oh, that was Sir Clark Kent,
It
Lois
was
Lane.
That's right.
Oh,
right.
I love
That's
that.
close enough. And by the way,
So I win?
You win?
This is close enough.
Close enough. Yeah.
No, you're not a millennial.
No, you only get half your body tan with half a certificate.
Okay.
And by the way, Christmas is coming around, and if you go on our website and click on paintball, we have some paintball tickets, severely discounted price. So
Pretty good.
check that
Christmas
out.
is coming. You couldn't tell that from my mailbox or the stores, could you?
No, but even before
Thanksgiving yet.
Halloween, next July 5th, right after July 4th,
Yeah.
suddenly they're going to start putting all the Christmas stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to be first online.
Exactly.
So, Patty, you've got some interesting commercial stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, commercial real estate, although we all think it might not really apply to us or affect us on a day-to-day basis, it really is a huge part of the economy. It's an $11 trillion sector, and they're starting to see a lot of defaults on commercial loans.
Huh.
And,
Any specific sector?
not
Apartments,
not necessarily.
industrial?
No, well, some of it is apartment buildings. They're seeing a lot more vacancies. But part of what's going on is that the loans that were made in 2006, 10-year loans, are coming due. And those loans were really shaky because commercial, just like residential, they were just giving them out blind.
Okay.
So those loans worked for the people, and even though they have equity, they can't do anything. They can't refi them. They can't do anything with them.
The properties themselves are not producing well enough to get someone to refinance, or the person's credit?
Well, the whole
Okay.
commercial refinancing sector has been tightening, and again, that was something that was a little bit unexpected.
Yeah.
That it's been quite a bit harder to get and qualify for commercial loans, and I've also seen
Right.
that in the press as well. And I don't really know what's driving that because they don't have the same they don't have the same excuses conventional mortgages do, where they blame everything on Dodd-Frank and TRID.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Which are real reasons why it's more difficult now to get conventional residential financing. But on the commercial side, it is troubling.
Yeah, commercial residential is very difficult. I mean, for example, in the wall of maturity here, I'm looking at a graph. In 2012, the volume of commercial mortgage-backed securities loans slated to mature in 2012, it was 50 billion. In 2017, it's 120 billion slated to mature.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah.
And does it in that article, does it indicate whether some of those loan to values are still relatively high? Because that could be a reason why.
No. There's equity there. This is exactly what's saying, despite rising property values.
So there could be some foreclosure opportunities coming down the pike as well.
Yeah, I would imagine big ones.
With every hint of bad news comes the silver lining, right?
And then to expand on that, so with Trump, I mean, will this mean rising interest rates?
Mhm.
And so it's even going to be more difficult for people to survive, really, or to get these kinds of
To
loans.
qualify
To
for
qualify.
it,
Yeah.
well, that just and certainly a lot of real estate investors who play in the commercial sector, and we're talking office buildings and other large commercial properties, and you're talking millions and hundreds of millions, and there are companies out there that with sitting on hordes of cash that could certainly take advantage of that. So there might be an
That's true.
interesting repositioning of commercial property in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 8th year of expansion in the commercial sector, so who knows where that's going, but it absolutely affects all of us as it trickles down.
Well, and certainly I know I've read articles where subleasing activity in areas like San Francisco has been picking up, and that would be indicative on maybe a slacking demand for office space due to maybe the tech companies not growing as fast as they had imagined, or VC capital not being as plentiful, or not being awarded to as many startups, which is not related to commercial financing, but just relative to the what might be down the pike for the tech industry. There's sometimes you hear about is tech in a bubble? Is the tech industry now? I don't think it is. I think the tech industry is solid right now. But it's just interesting that the ebb and flow of vacancy and now sublease activity.
Yeah, I mean, and in terms of office, not as much office is needed as people are working from home. So according to this article, it's mostly about this is to come. So you've got, the 120 billion about to mature. You've got rising interest rates, and you've got, the 8th year of expansion. So what's going to happen? It's not so much of what's happening now, but it's like what they're seeing about to happen.
Well, and as you said earlier in the show, you are a residential realtor, top realtor in Marin County, and so you see a lot of activity. You're plugged in. I mean, you're with Pacific Union, which is one of the leading companies in Bay Area real estate, and you're saying that the market's clearly slowing down. You've been saying that on the show now for the last probably 4 months, solid, if not 5 months.
Yeah.
I remember when you came in during the summer one show and said that you were actually kind of surprised and almost like someone flipped a light switch, and we went from low days on market to stuff all of a sudden just kind of sitting. And now we're really seeing, people have to price properly and stuff isn't flying off the shelf. I have properties that we have bought to fix and flip in the East Bay, and the East Bay has been continued to be hot, still is hot, but I've got one property that I'm actually surprised I haven't had more offers, and it's been 30 days on the market, so certainly not flying off the shelf, but a cooling off. You coined the term normalization of the marketplace. Again, not a bad thing, but we in the real estate business have been spoiled by a rather robust seller's market, and even though there's nothing wrong with a buyer's market, I got to admit it's a little bit disconcerting.
Well, we need it. I mean, it's not a sharp peak. It's not a stark anything. It's just a glide, and we need a glide. We've had a glide, and like anything in life, there's ebbs and there's flows.
Right.
Tides, love, anything. So,
in life there are cycles.
There are cycles. There are just cycles, and we're in that cycle of a 5 years of a seller's market. We're gliding into a buyer's market.
Gliding.
Yeah,
Gliding.
we're gliding. And it's
Yeah.
very normal. It's very healthy. We couldn't sustain what we had, so it's fine. But we just need to be aware of it.
It's kind of like I remember biorhythms in the 80s. It's like I'm in the low trough of my biorhythmic cycle.
That also had to do with mood rings.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
mood
think.
rings.
Lava lamps.
Yes.
I miss those days.
I know. Bring back the 80s, man.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
So slowing market, I think it's good. Certainly the statistics that I'm watching for year-over-year appreciation continues to slide towards, I think, a more healthy and sustainable growth rate, 5 to 6%. And again, that's actually a trailing indicator. This is just based on information that's still coming in from the summertime, and here we are in November, and it wouldn't surprise me if we saw even kind of a further slowing of year-over-year appreciation in many Bay Area markets. Are you, Patty? Are you seeing people having to price adjustments, lowerings, reductions in the marketplace yet, or is it just days on market's going increasing?
Well, it's both. I mean, again, you got to remember these are emotionally attached homeowners that over a kitchen table can decide they next door got this, so I want 10% more. So not everybody listens to their agent. So therefore, what happens is it's kind of bipolar. So you get buyers who are kind of see this schizophrenic market,
and my house
they get
is
scared.
much nicer than the neighbors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to say that we're not getting multiple offers. We're getting a lot of them still.
All right. Okay, tell you what, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, Mark, and I want to ask you for deal of the week. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. All right.
Good.
I have to get Rick in here, man, because he's like got all the deals in his pipeline. Let's see.
So there's a guy in El Dorado Hills that's being funded. Remember that one? The guy, I think the reason he can't get financing is because he owns too many rentals.
Yeah.
I think something like that. And yet the guy, I just saw his tax return. He makes $1.5 million.
Doing
and
what?
He paid $600. What's that rental income?
Is that gross?
No, that was his gross
His
was over
AGI?
$3 million.
Jeez.
Yes, his AGI was $1.5 million, and he paid $600,000 in taxes.
He owns too many homes.
I have a client who owns, at this point, he owns 4,500 units. He lives on Oakmont. You know, the house that's not finished? That one.
Oh, really? Oh, he's a doctor. Isn't he?
He's a doctor. He
Why
was
is
a dentist in the city.
Dentist, yeah.
Loves me. We get along so good. So his son is buying that one. Plans just got approved to finally finish that. And he's going to take his son's house on 520 Fairhill, and he's going to have me sell that.
So, what was the deal? Why? Because for 10 years at
I
least.
don't know why. He is an odd dog.
Yeah,
And-
we weren't sure if it was like he was getting sued and he basically didn't want to improve it.
He's an interesting guy. Like, he really
He
listens
must be
to me.
old now.
He's 72.
That's all?
Great facelift, big flirt, gorgeous wife, nicest guy. But I mean, I talk
He
to him.
just left it
I
vacant
don't
for all
know.
this time?
He's so
Strange.
he's in his own way, and he listens to me because I tell him stuff like that,
Yeah.
and he likes it.
I
So-
just only have one ear working here. It's a little, I got the static coming in on this side here.
Really?
I can't hear anything.
Then take him and turn around.
There you go.
Have a headache? Punch yourself in the stomach.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. I have
I mean, it's
Static
a little,
in there.
I do. Yeah, I hear a little static too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more coming from here than it is.
all right.
anything else.
So,
Okay.
but it's not
But
showing
it's
up
not
on.
showing up here.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, you'll like this. That guy got a $116 million hard money loan.
Wow.
He's fearless. He's just fearless. I was like, good for you, Ron. He's always bragging. He goes, I got to tell you what I did now. He shows off a little bit. I'm like, Ron,
He got 116
$116 million hard money loan.
for.
Sacramento. All his now he's up to last year he had 1,300 units. Now he's 4,500. Sacramento, Reno, just units.
God, what did he pay in interest and points on something like that?
Wow.
Someone probably gave him a good deal, but
It was
still,
6%.
that's not too much hard money. But
I know.
okay, here we go. Ready? Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt and Patti Coleman. Let's see. We already asked our last trivia question, so. Mark, give us deal of the week. I understand there was something
In the foothills?
Yeah, the foothills.
Yeah. So, we talk about on this show many of the unbelievable loan requests that we get at Pacific Private Money. Not unbelievable in that the person is just like a financial disaster and is hoping that someone will bail them out with a wish loan, which we really don't do that at Pacific Private Money. Hard money used to be back in the day the lender of last resort. If you had any equity in your home and you were in financial distress, you went to your local hard money guy. You paid 10 points and 12%. You got a $100,000 loan, and if you didn't pay him off, he came a
Chopped
collected.
off your knees.
That's right. But nowadays with the new Dodd-Frank financial reforms and banking reforms and anti-predatory lending laws that have been enacted, banks don't just make loans to anyone who could fog a mirror. In fact, they look at a lot of different things to make you qualify now. But there's just so many unintended consequences from some of these what we feel are overreaching banking regulations. And not that we mind at Pacific Private Money, because actually our business has been booming the last few years because of people who get caught up in a banking nuance or a conventional lending nuance that gets them declined for regular bank 4% financing. And so this particular person who came to us, his mortgage broker who brought us the deal and said, hey, I can't close this transaction. Could you please help my client buy this property, and then it'll give me some time to get him a conventional bank loan. I'll refinance and pay off your hard money loan at Pacific Private Money. But here was the guy's situation. We got his package, and on his tax return, the man made his adjusted gross income was over $1.5 million, of which he paid $600,000 in taxes.
Wow.
That's a pretty good income. Why would a bank not make a loan to this guy for him to buy a home? And the reason was the guy owned too many properties. Do you remember the too many property rule that started to come up years ago? And it impacted mostly real estate investors and flippers. Well, it still kind of does, because he is a active real estate investor and he owned too many other properties, and so it made him unappealing to the banks that his mortgage broker was pursuing in an effort to get him purchase money.
Fearful that it's like the domino theory? You know, he'll lose one, and they'll lose the other, and the other, and the other. Is that the theory?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, I don't even really know what the theory is because it seems absurd. I think what it is they're really, it has to do with the fact that they're selling these loans in the secondary marketplace, and then the loans have to fit within a certain algorithm, and there has to be certain income and other attributes to the loan to make it fit within the resale guidelines.
Maybe he's got too much in debt, even though he's got a lot of assets. He doesn't own all those rental properties free and clear, and so maybe he has too much debt. That could be the reason.
You know, they obviously assign a risk factor to this. So the bottom line was we were able to close that loan for him, and while he didn't relish paying 9.5% and a couple of points for the loan that we made him, the fact of the matter is there's no prepayment penalty. He can pay it off whenever he wants. We helped him capture the property that he wanted to buy, and now his mortgage broker has the time to adequately go out there and find a lender.
And that seems like a pretty conservative loan for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, for more information, give us a call at Pacific Private Money, 415-883-2150, or go to pacificprivatemoney.com.
And Patti, again, if people have real estate questions for you?
Oh yeah, residential real estate, Patti Cohn, that's C-O-H-N, Pacific Union, 415-722-4842.
All right, we're going to cut out. Here's our thoughts for the day. If nothing sticks to Teflon, what makes Teflon stick to the pan?
Hey, good.
And why doesn't glue stick to the inside of the bottle? I don't know. Okay. Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. Maybe we'll have answers then. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.
Good.
Yay, it's wrapped.
That's it. We gotta fix that.
Yeah, I don't know why that it didn't.